When hope is gone, undo this lock and send me forth on a moonlit walk. Release restraint level 0. Hey kids, wanna see a dead body?
Hi guys, this is the Void of the Ravenclaw. Welcome back to another fanfiction story. If you like this type of content, smash the like button and subscribe for future videos and updates that I do post on my community tab regularly. And make sure to visit my Discord to get access to my videos early before I officially release it on YouTube. You will find the link to my Discord in the description down below. Now, with that said, let's continue where we last left off in our story. As you can see, a 6-year-old Deku in his room, hovering above the carpet of his room, with several items, smaller items in his room, floating all around him. Deku suddenly had to stop as he started to breathe heavy. As the small boy wiped the sweat off of his forehead and just flopped down onto the carpet, trying to catch his breath, as he got up and immediately began to write his progress in his journals, writing down any improvements he needs to make during his training, and his thoughts of his current abilities with his telekinesis. Deku is fully aware he doesn't have a quirk anymore, but at least he still has telekinesis in this new life of his. He still doesn't know why it happened. He's not complaining. He has a new chance for a new life, so he's not going to do anything to mess it up. He knows eventually this syndicate that he's heard of on the news is definitely going to be a problem. But he won't outright challenge them if they leave him alone. If they don't, then he's going to have to get into his villain persona and bring death. But for now, he's far too young, at least his appearance-wise. He might have the mind of a adult, but he still is in the body of a small 6-year-old boy, no matter how enhanced the body is. He's unsure if he's even human anymore. His new adopted mother hasn't brought up the subject. She must have known, has a basic idea of what he is, but she never pressed the issue. So he never brought it up. It doesn't really matter to him either way. The next day, Deku was about to test a few things with his physical strength when he went into the forest that surrounds the estate. He found a couple of rocks that are slightly smaller than his palm as he begins to apply pressure, closing his fists, as Deku could hear the cracking noises from the cracking rock as it shattered into millions of smaller rock particles as he unclenched his fists as the rock particles blow in the wind. Impressive. I clearly have a version of some sort of super strength. And this super strength is only increasing in power as my body grows and ages. Fascinating. As he begins to write that down in his journal, labeled powers and abilities. I would definitely like to test things out more, but for now, is a good place to stop. Who knows what type of abilities will surface as I get older. But for now, I should probably head back before someone notices I'm gone, as Deku managed to sneak back into the manor with no one the wiser, and begin to do his online schooling. He doesn't mind doing this. Gives him the chance to learn about this planet called Earth. He found it ironic that this planet shares the same name of the planet where he's originally from before his death and rebirth. But their history is completely different. Even their version of Japan is completely different compared to the Japan where he's from. No people, no quirks existed in this dimension. That doesn't mean people don't have abilities. No quirks, no All Might, no All for One. It was a bit refreshing. There's only the crime syndicate, having the entire country under their heel, ruling over them, like some sort of criminal organization, like a superhero mafia, like they're some sort of gods. Each head of the member of the syndicate has their own subordinates with their own powers and abilities. He'll have to do more research in the future, in case the day comes where he has to go against the syndicate. He's not looking to go after them, but it's better be safe than sorry. Deku has never been known to be unprepared. A small part of him is very excited, the mere thought of fighting such a powerful organization, but he needs to make sure he's strong enough before he even reveals himself, if he ever reveals himself. Deku continued to live his peaceful life with his new adopted mother, Harley Quinn. The same apparition of his deceased mother is still with him, even after his death, so he's never truly alone. New adopted mother could never replace his original mother, but he does care for the woman, about the same amount that he did for Inko. She went out of her way to raise him, and he couldn't thank her enough for that. Most people would have just walked away, seeing a small baby in a spacecraft from an unknown alien origin. He was brought out of his thoughts when one of the maids informed Deku that supper has been served, and his mother is waiting for him downstairs. I see. As he begins to follow the maid to the dining room, as he sat across from his mother on the dining room table, as several of the maids begin to lay out down their food. How was your day, sweetheart? Did you do your homework already? Yes, mother. That's a good boy. They continued to eat in silence, only engaging in small talk. Just a normal thing you would see between a mother and a son. Harley barely noticed. He's been getting strands of pure white hair more rapidly recently. Normally a parent would be a bit alarmed seeing their child starting to get white hair, but the white hair is a straight, pure white color instead of a whitish grayish color that you would find on the elderly population. Of course, she's raising basically an alien. She shouldn't be surprised that surprises like that would occasionally pop up. Like the fact that he has telekinesis. Harley knows what her son's been doing. She might not be his birth mother, but she is still his mother. Hasn't done anything dangerous of yet, so she allowed him to do whatever he wants in secret. She won't tell him that she knows. She wants her son to tell her herself. She has no desire to force the answer out of him. That's no way to build trust. So Harley decided to be patient and allow her son to open up to her naturally instead of forcing the subject. If she tried to force the subject, there is a good chance he'll shut her out and distance himself, and that's something she cannot allow. She hasn't been a mother for long, but she's been enjoying having a son, spending time with her child. And despite how odd her son is, he's always been a well-behaved kid, never lashing out, always following the rules to a point. She doesn't quite understand why he is insisted on to be referred as Deku. She's not sure why, but she has no problem calling him as such. She likes using his nickname that she likes to use for him. She calls him her very own Brightburn. The truth is, he has no desire to use his original name, Izuku. He's always been more comfortable using his villain name. He'll be using his villain name for his civilian name while he's in this dimension on this planet. He doesn't even know there's even a way back or to another dimension itself. This is a new territory for him. And no one would even know of his name, even though he was a villain from a different dimension. No one alive will most likely have proof of it. And dimension travel is pretty much a fairy tale on his original birthplace. Still quite a mystery to him how he got here. He wants to solve that mystery at some point, but he has more pressing issues. He needs to make sure he's strong enough in case his life was ever brought in danger, but the likelihood of someone actually hurting him is very unlikely. To his knowledge, he's immune to knives. Knives can't cut his skin. He's unsure if he's bulletproof yet, but he doesn't really want to test that out. Being shot is something he doesn't want to experience again. He'll eventually find out one day if he's bulletproof or not, but he'll rather not push his luck. Not even a year later, his hair was once... Try this again, guys. Not even a year later, his once green hair turned pure white. The moment Deku turned 7, his entire head of green hair turned pure white. He kept his original eye color, his bright green color, remained the same. But oddly, it occasionally glow. But no one seemed to notice. It would fastly glow, then disappear. It was so fast and brief, no one noticed at the manor. Deku was in his room as his hearing suddenly became extremely sensitive, as he's hearing everything in a wide range. As his super hearing has finally surfaced, as he tried to cover his ears with his hands to block out the sound, Deku grit his teeth and tried to focus on a singular sound and block out everything else, as he focused his main attention on hearing upon a waterfall that's in the forest not too far away, as a soothing water becomes prominent and drowned out all the noises that was affecting him. Deku continued this method and started to focus on 2 different sounds at once. He continued this process. This process took a week to get used to, but a week well spent. Now that he has access and knows how to use his super hearing, he can mostly keep it under control. But he continued to work on his hearing, so it won't cripple him in case he found himself in a situation with loud noises. Deku immediately wrote down everything he knows and learned about his super hearing. Once Deku was done writing it in his journal, he placed the journal back into the hiding department in his room. It would be very unwise of him to leave something like that around with that sort of information on it right in the open of his room, for someone just to come in and come across it and read it. His super hearing is still a work in progress, but he's made some good leeway. And with his telekinesis, he's nowhere near as powerful as he was. When he had that telekinesis quirk. But he's still making progress. He can't lift up a car or anything like that. It's clearly still too heavy for him at this current time. He'll be able to do more with his telekinesis as his body grows, as his mind and brain becomes more mature. His brain is still mostly undeveloped. He's still a 19, 20-year-old in a child's body. His brain, like I said, hasn't fully been developed. So he's limited on what he could do with his telekinesis. Unknown to Deku and Harley, he's been absorbing the reflected sunlight from the moon. The moon itself is the very reason why he's gaining his powers. The moon generates a type of UV light. It's just less pronounced than the sun. Deku is the complete opposite of a Kryptonian, where a version of a Kryptonian. When they get their abilities from the yellow sun, Deku get his abilities from the sun itself, absorbing any of the UV rays and the energy that the moon can produce. It might be small amounts compared to the sun, but it's still affecting Deku biologically. Where Superman is the sun, Deku is the moon. The more he absorbs the UV rays and the energy that comes from the moon, the more his powers will manifest. It depends on how developed his mind and body is. He was already born with telekinesis, but the other abilities will surface as he grows and develops. Eventually the weekend finally came. As Harley took her son with her into town, she had to take her son to run a couple errands in Metropolis. Harley Quinn might not like Ultraman, but he knows how to keep law and order in his city. If they don't bring attention to themselves, they should be alright. Once Deku was all seated in the passenger seat of the car, Harley turned on the ignition and start up the vehicle as she begins to drive towards Metropolis. I want you to stay with me at all times. Metropolis is quite big and is easy to get lost. Yes, Mother, I'll stay close. That's my good brightburn. As she gently, affectionately ruffled his hair, his white hair. I honestly prefer you in green hair, honestly. I do. Well, Feel the same, Mother, but there's nothing you can do about it. You could always use green hair dye. I'm not letting that crap near my hair. Language, young man. Very well, I won't have that sort of thing ruin my hair. You know as well as I do, hair dye damages your hair when applied. I tend to forget you're pretty much smarter than most adults. But I suppose you do have a point. Where exactly are we going, Mother? I have to pick up a few things after I'm done meeting with a couple of clients for work. Your mother works with a lot of famous people. Deku decided to use this time while in the car to read a book on genetics. The book is clearly too advanced for a 7-year-old, but Deku completely understands the material. He's not new when it comes to genetics. He is quite knowledgeable about the subject. When he was Izuku Midoriya, back in his old world, he had a dabble in that to copy his deceased mother's quirk before his death. After they got to their destination, Deku followed closely by holding his mother's hand as they walked into the agency where his mother was going to meet a couple of clients. As Deku sat down patiently on the other side of the agency and began to read his genetics book while his mother was doing her job, getting all the finer details with her new clients. As he came across a small passage or section that mentioned about plants and their abilities to photosynthesis. Don't know if I pronounced that right. Photosynthesis? Whatever. You know what I mean. As the book explained, sunlight is a natural resource of life, the very building blocks of life. As it finally included the moon, briefly, mentioned there's some plants that only bloom at night with the help of the moon reflecting the sun and casting it upon Earth. There's many smaller plants that only blossom when the moon is out and when the sun is down. Harley heard a knock at the door as Earth 3 Lex Luthor entered the agency. Miss Quinn, it's good to see you. It's good to see you're still in good health. Charming as ever. What do I owe this lovely visit? I'm hurt, Harley. Can a friend just come to visit? You're a tough guy. You live. As Harley gave Lex a smirk as she gestured Luthor to sit down. What's with the kid? You babysitting or something? Nothing of the sort. Lex, that is my son. Lex had to take a double take. He knew Harley had to slow down in her work for some unknown reason, but the timeline between now and then does fit. The boy does look like he's 7 years old. It fits the timeline. Dear, why don't you introduce yourself to Lex? The white-haired 7-year-old boy, closed his genetics book and set it down on the chair as he stood up and walked towards his mother and Lex Luthor. Deku proceeded to introduce himself as Deku as he gave Lex a bow. Even though he's an alien and he looks exactly the same, he's still Japanese to his core. Lex gave the boy a gentle smile. Nice to meet you, Deku. Likewise, Mr. Luthor. And you're clever. How did you... And you're clever. That book you were reading, that's quite advanced. Genetics, I believe, from the cover. Are correct, Mr. Luthor? Do you understand the material? Yes, I understand it completely, sir. Interesting. What a very talented child you have there. My brightburn is special. Before Lex could start asking more questions, his phone went off. As he answered it, understood. Tell Ultraman I'll be on my way. I do apologize. I wish I could stay and catch up more, but duty calls. As he said his farewells and left the agency, I'll have to keep a close eye on Harley and her new son. There's something off about that kid. Deku. Normally 7-year-olds don't read books of that caliber. What exactly you been up to, my friend? Hopefully it doesn't get you killed. He needs to focus on his job. He'll investigate and figure out what exactly is going on with Harley and her new son. He has his doubts, but yet again, the timeline does fit. He would be lying if he wasn't curious about the father, but he would never be so rude to brought that up in that conversation. After all, Harley is one of his close friends that he has left. And good friends he doesn't have many good friends left anymore because of the crime syndicate. As Lex got into his limousine and drove off to go to the meeting with Ultraman and the rest of the head figures of the crime syndicate of America. After they left the agency, they went to run a few errands. After that, they had a nice meal. Then they got into the car as they drove home. When they got home, Harley tucked in her son into bed. When she was satisfied, knowing her son is nice and tucked under the covers, she turned off the lights and gently closed the door as she went to bed herself. A couple weeks has passed as Deku started to get flashes of vivid dreams of him flying and shooting some sort of energy beams out of his eyes. Deku woke up in a cold sweat after another vivid dream. Something's drawing him towards something. Instead of resisting the feeling, he allowed himself to follow the unknown pull. Deku followed the strange urge that eventually led him down underground, using the elevator that was in the manor, or the estate, leading him to an underground storage that was once used by the government. Deku approached a black ship. Once he made physical contact with the ship, he felt something trying to corrupt or rewrite his mind, trying to alter his personality. Of course, Deku would not allow such a thing to happen. Once the connection was severed, the moment he felt a hand on his shoulder, I knew you would find yourself here sooner or later. So this is what I came from when you found me. Indeed, sweetheart. I suppose me acting like I'm normal is pointless now. That it is, my son. That it is. Let's go to the living room so we could have a nice chat. Of course, Mother. Harley extended her hand outward towards her son for him to hold her hand. The 7-year-old Deku did not hesitate and grabbed onto his parents' hand with no hesitation. As they, mother and son, began to walk towards the elevator, eventually getting to the ground level, as Deku hopped onto one of the couches. I'll be frank, my sweet boy. I know you have abilities. How? I was being careful. Sweetheart, I'm your mother. It's a mother's duty to find out what their child is doing. I might not be your blood mother, but I'm still your mother, nevertheless. Nothing gets past my nose. What am I exactly? I don't know, sweetheart. Wait, you're bleeding. As Deku finally realized, he pricked his finger. That's odd. You must have pricked your finger when you were touching your ship. She took a glass vial and began to fill it up with blood. It didn't take long for the cut to instantly heal. As she stored away the blood to get a closer look at his DNA, with his skin being impervious until this point, taking a blood sample was impossible. Harley instantly put two to two together. His ship, or the metal it's made of, must be able to hurt him. She'll definitely need to get rid of the ship sooner or later. Deku immediately mirrored her thoughts. I think we need to get rid of that ship then. What do you mean, dear? The only thing that I could think of that actually injured me is most likely that ship. It must have something to do with my home planet. The metal is made of. It must be my weakness. And I felt some sort of strange pull drive me towards the ship. The moment I touched it, it tried to evade my mind and try to reorganize my personality. That last comment clearly alarmed her. If her son is telling the truth, and he has no reason to lie, she needs to separate her son from the ship and destroy it. Tell me, what else can you do, son? As you probably already know, I have telekinesis. My body is pretty much impervious. If we don't count my ship, that could apparently hurt me. I also have super hearing, and I'm a lot more faster, stronger. I haven't tested it fully, but I started to crush small pebbles in the palm of my hand, and it was quite easy to do so. Suddenly Deku started to get headaches, and his eyes started to itch. Harley Quinn noticed her son's behavior. She was quite worried. Then a green beam of heat vision shot out of his eyes and completely destroying the vase above the fireplace. Harley Quinn panicked and told her son to close his eyes. As he kept a blindfold over his eyes and led him outside so they could figure out what's going on. She was right. There's a good possibility he might be Kryptonian or some similar alien species. She's no expert when it comes to aliens. After several trials and errors, having her son use his heat vision, she finally got him to get a hang of it. Are you alright? I'm fine, Mom. My eyes, whoa. I could see through the matter. Like X-ray vision? Yes, Mother, I think. You're most likely right. Let's go back inside. From that day on, Harley helped her son start to get used to his abilities day by day. His abilities started to get stronger. New ones started to appear, like his X-ray vision, and his ability to control electronics, just with his mind, just with his telekinesis. That surprised her. Her son does have similar abilities to Ultron. And yet again, he has abilities that he does not. So her original thought of him being a Kryptonian was clearly wrong. He clearly has similar abilities to a Kryptonian. He must belong to a separate race. And she decided to do another test. As she got her hands on some kryptonite and handed it over to her son to see the effects. And to her surprise, nothing happened. He wasn't affected whatsoever. If he was a Kryptonian, a true Kryptonian, he would have been able to absorb the kryptonite, making his power stronger. But instead, the kryptonite had no effect on him whatsoever. So that's definitely rule out Deku being a Kryptonian. She had his blood tested. As she's looking, it took several months, but she finally got the results. As she's reading through the file, while in the living room, while Deku was waiting patiently, as he kept his mind focused by practicing with his telekinesis. Now that he no longer has to hide it, he can train without no issue. As he's floating several small objects around the room, small round marbles, hovering above his hand, going around in a rotation. So what did you find out, Mom? It's quite fascinating. If I'm reading this right, you have a type of photosynthesis. Like a plant? Yes, like a plant. But it's strange, you don't absorb the UV rays from the sun. You absorb the UV rays that the sun reflects from the moon. My educational guess is whatever energy that the moon radiates mixed in with the UV rays that gets reflected from the sun, and that's what you absorb, responsible for your powers. But that's just an educational guess. We have no proof on that. This is just a theory. The longer you're exposed to these conditions, the stronger your abilities should get. That probably is why you don't feel as powerful during the day that you do during the night. I would probably explain why my powers are not as powerful during the day. I still have access to my powers, but they're just not as strong. You're still a growing boy. Your powers are most likely will grow with you. But that's it for today. We've learned a lot about how your genetic works. I still need to work out some finer details. As it's been a week since their last training session, so Harley decided to take her son out for a treat, taking her darling Brightburn to an ice cream parlor in Metropolis. They were sitting down eating ice cream at the ice cream parlor after they ordered. As Harley's phone started to ring. This is Quinn. Are you? In Metropolis at the ice cream parlor. Why? What's wrong, Lex? You sound panicked. They know you've been helping the Jester. They're coming for you. Get out of the city. You need to get out of the city. I'm getting you now. Shit. As Harley grabbed her son's hand and began to walk out of the ice cream parlor, entering the streets of Metropolis, not even 5 minutes later, a limousine stopped as the door opened, as Lex popped his head out. Get in. We don't have much time. Harley and Deku got into the back seat of the limousine as the driver shut the passenger's backseat door and hopped into the driver's seat as Lex ordered him to step on it. What's going on, Lex? The Jester is dead. How? Owlman. He tortured him. I tried to get him out, but security was too tight. He tried his best, but eventually they tortured the information out of him. The syndicate's been killing off all of his well-known associates and family, and your name was on that list. Ultraman ordered your execution by the hands of Owlman. As the Owl plane had the limousine in its sights, the Owlman pressed the trigger. As the Owl plane launched 2 missiles, the 2 missiles flew and hit the limousine, forcing the limousine to crash into a wall. Owlman, once the Owl plane dove closer to the ground, Owlman hopped out of the pilot's seat and landed on the streets of Metropolis and pulled out his plasma gun as he slowly walked towards the damaged limousine. Lex crawled out of the limousine. "You don't have to do this, Owlman." Step aside, Luthor, as he pointed his plasma gun at Lex. "Don't make me kill you, because I have no problem doing such a thing. I've never liked you, Lex. Only reason I'm showing this kind of restraint from ending your very existence here and now is because of the work you do for the crime syndicate. So, step aside." "It's fine, Lex," as he whispered in her ear. "Take care of my son. He's special, more than you know." "What are you doing? You can't." Harley gently cupped her son's cheeks in her hands. "I need to do this. I'm guaranteeing your safety, my dear. You're not strong enough yet. I'm sorry, this is where we part ways. I do truly love you, my son." As she kissed his top of his forehead, as she walked towards Owlman with no fear. I got to give it to you, Miss Quinn. You're quite the brave one. I can respect that. How long have you known about my involvement with the Jester?" "Since the very beginning. You honestly think we didn't know you were helping that clown plot against us? Only reason why we haven't acted till this point is because you're just a minor inconvenience." "I see. Promise me one thing. No harm will come to my son." Owlman briefly looked at Deku as a small 7-year-old boy with pure white hair and and green eyes, staring back at Owlman with pure hatred. Then he completely ignored the boy and gently gave Harley a nod in acknowledgement as he pointed his plasma gun towards Harley Quinn. Nothing personal, just the price of business. As he shot the plasma gun, that went right through her body and piercing right through her heart. As the dead corpse of Harley Quinn fell to the ground, as Deku was about to rush and kill the bastard, but someone hold him back. "He'll kill you, son." He scoffed, but he controlled his anger. He can't believe this is happening again. He was broken out of his conversation with Lex by Owlman shooting his dead, deceased adopted mother several more times with his plasma gun, as he put the plasma weapon in his holster and simply turned around as his cowl wave around as he turned around as he walked away. Deku's eyes began to glow a bright green, watching Owlman's retreating form as he grit his teeth. He knows full well if he went after him, he has no doubt in his mind he could kill that bastard, but that would only bring the rest of the crime syndicate down upon him, and he's not strong enough for them. But he vowed to himself he's going to kill this bastard for killing his mother. Once again, his mother was killed, and he couldn't do a goddamn thing about it. Even if he killed and saved his mother, they would probably end up being killed by Ultraman anyways when the news got to him. Let's go. He looked upon his dead mother one more time. Then he left with Lex Luthor, killing whatever shred of mercy he has in his heart. The crime syndicate will pay, not just the bastard Owlman, all of them. Ultraman, Johnny Quick, Superwoman, Power Ring, and the rest of their lackeys, they will die. It's time for villain Deku once again to enter the grand stage. But he needs to get stronger, and he'll use Lex to do so. With his vast wealth, he'll be able to get better equipment to progress his training even further, and if he can't, he'll kill him. The moment his adopted mother was murdered right in front of him, he stopped giving a fuck what he does. If the crime syndicate just left him alone and allowed him to live his life with his new mother, their lives would have been spared. Now the crime syndicate just awoken the sleeping dragon, or just awoken the sleeping white dragon. And the white dragon is thirsty for blood. We're going to stop it. Catch you guys in the next video.